Have you thrown out your Christmas tree yet? Good, good. That's great. Progress is being made. I remember last year going down the first street down here to the left, and on St. Stephen's Day, the day after Christmas, there was a Christmas tree out on the curb. I said, boy, these people have missed it. The church spends 8 days thinking about, meditating upon the great feast that we celebrated last Sunday, the Feast of the Lord's Birth. And today we highlight Mary especially in her role. But there's some things that all these people that are involved in the Christmas story have in common. They're all underachievers. All of them. Who was Mary? Little girl, little town, little family. Who ever heard of them? Who was Joseph? We still don't know who he was. The shepherds, the lowest of society. Dirty people living in the hills, no facilities for months at a time. The riffraff of society. Everybody involved in the birth of Christ was an underachiever. Now, can you identify with that? I can, because we live in a culture which is constantly telling us, you got to do more, you got to earn more, you got to get another degree, you got to get into a better neighborhood, you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to grow up, you kids, you know. You got to grow up, you know. You can't stay childlike, even though Jesus says be childlike. So we live in a culture where achievement is just part of our breath. So I really identify with them because most of us are just folks. We have good jobs or bad jobs, good health or bad health, but we're just folks. But it's interesting that these are the people that God came to and used for his purposes. He didn't go to the high and the mighty. He went to the ordinary folk. That's the first thing to remember. It's interesting, too, that Mary and Joseph, now we know that they were told there's a pregnancy, and imagine what that did in town, you know? First of all, they were told to marry each other. The families decided in those days who married whom, so this wasn't romantic love like you see in Hollywood or we visualize today. This was two young people being told you're going to get married to keep our families united. And then all of a sudden this pregnancy pops up, and boy, you know what that did in Nazareth. So this is a tumultuous scene. We've sort of watered it down and made it very pretty. But it was a tumultuous thing in the life of all the individuals involved here. And that's the thing I think we have to remember. Because when God comes into our life, us ordinary folk, it's usually upsetting. Now, our way of defending ourselves from that is when God comes into our life in any way, and that can be sickness, that could be a move, a physical moving of residence, it can be a disappointment, it can be the death of a loved one. All these are ways in which God, he doesn't cause these things, but he uses them to enter into our life. And we usually react to them. But do you notice what Mary and Joseph did? They didn't react, even though what was told them was so unusual. They responded. They responded to God. They didn't say, oh, this can't be. Not me, not us, not our family. No, they responded knowing that the God who was their God would not harm them and let anything disastrous happen to them. The whole key of the Christmas story is found in the second reading today. When you get rid of all the historical background, which is very nice, the key is found when Paul tells us, we have received the adoption of children. We have been adopted by God because of his overwhelming love for us. Not because of what we have achieved. And see, that's the part we get hung up on all the time. God doesn't love us because we're achievers, because most of us aren't. He loves us because we are. We are His creation. And so He comes to us despite what we have done with our lives, what we have done with our world, what we have done with the universe. He comes to us lovingly and not only says, "You are my creatures," but I adopt you as my children. He gives us the same status almost that Jesus has, who is the natural Son of God. And that's another mystery. What a wonderful, uplifting event this was. It was the uplifting event for the whole of human history. You don't have to achieve the love of God. You've got it. And you don't have to react to your life situations. You need to respond. And how do you learn how to respond? By doing what Mary did. Can you imagine how you would have reacted if somebody told you, "You're pregnant," and you knew you hadn't been involved? You would have reacted. I would have reacted. Probably worse than you. But no, she responded to God's call because she was a person who pondered, who looked at her life in the always knowing that God was hovering over us, over her, and would let nothing harmful happen. I mentioned last week what Julian of Norwich said. The worst has already happened in your life, in our life as human beings. The worst has happened, and it's been repaired. And the repairing is what we're celebrating at Christmas time. Whatever we have done to screw up our lives, our universe, our world, it has been repaired by adoption. We are the children of God in truth, not in fiction, not in wish, but in reality. And so we are the brothers and the sisters of Jesus, and everything is all right. Everything is all right.